And ladies and gentlemen, we are now live on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, also on the Northeast Streaming Sports Channel. And of course, you can catch us tomorrow night on Roku as well. That'll be 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And as always, the radio version, you can catch us here on sportnarium.com/player. And I've got four of my guys here from Sportswire Radio. That includes from the Pinstripe Chronicles and Nerding Out Sports, who's up late for us or up early, depending on how you see it. That is Mr. Donald Stewart. And also here from the Baseball Banter Show, we have Justin Gianelli rocking a vintage Nets jersey. Certainly a New Jersey Nets-like jersey, but it is a Kevin Durant jersey, as I asked him that off the air. And, of course, from the Talking Rivals show, we have Chris Pizzea, also of the Liftoff Jets, an esteemed author, brand new book out, collection of short stories, doing very well on the charts. And that is, of course, esteemed author Patrick Trotty. And, guys, happy Friday, or in Donald's case, happy weekend. And how are we all doing here tonight?
Good.
Doing pretty
Let's
good.
go. Let's go.
All
How
right.
is everybody? How is all?
Well,
Doing good.
All right, certainly interesting opening there, to say the least. But let's dial it so we can get everybody back in here. So obviously Super Bowl is passed, and I've heard a number of you guys definitely talk about it in our Sportswire radio group on Twitter. Also, Donald and Rob covered it here earlier this week for us for our Nerding Out Sports show. Shout out to Rob as always. So I want to get impressions since we haven't spoke since a Super Bowl champion has been crowned. And let's go with Donald first, since Donald is with us, and Donald covered it for us on Sportswire Radio. And Chris and Sharman, I know, will have also covered it by the time we will have played that show. So, Donald, set the tables for us on your impressions on our new Super Bowl champions, the Los Angeles Rams.
Well, first of all, congratulations to the Rams. It was it was a really close game. It was very tight. Could have gone either way. I really thought that in the second half that the Bengals probably should have won it, even though I felt the Rams were the better team. It was just that when Odell went down with the unfortunate ACL injury, that they didn't really have any other option outside of Cooper Kupp. I mean, Cam Akers only ran for like 21 yards, and then Henderson ran for 7 yards on 4 carries, and they had no run game at all. And it was one-dimensional, and Cooper Kupp obviously was their only main target. Obviously, the backup tight ends kind of helped out a little bit, but it was really the Bengals there to have if they wanted it. I really felt that the game changed when Tyler Boyd made that huge drop late in the fourth quarter. I really felt that the game changed on that moment right there, because if he held onto the ball and say they kicked a field goal, it's game over. So that I felt when he dropped that. I actually said out loud, I think this is game, set, match right here, because I just felt that way. Take nothing away though from Aaron Donald. The guy's an absolute machine. Though Zach Taylor kind of helped the Rams big time by taking the ball out of Joe Mixon's hands. That was regrettable. You don't go with Samaje Perine against Aaron Donald. That's a big mistake, and it cost them. But Aaron Donald's a machine. He's like a freight train, and he actually, to be honest, I think he probably should have won joint MVP. I thought he was just an absolute machine. So, you know what? I watched the video again, and Stafford, that last drive was really special. He was really throwing some balls in some really tight windows, and you have to hand it to him, man. It was a clutch performance when he needed it. That's my thoughts at the moment.
Very good comments there. And of course, John Gonzalez, also from the Sports Authorities group, is joined in and commented. So always good to hear from John. And we are now also joined by the brute force Bradley Weiss. Of course, the legendary SJC Golden. Why am I calling you Bradley Weiss at this point? Nobody calls you Bradley Weiss at this point. Maybe your parents don't even call you Bradley Weiss. But obviously, the brute force has joined us. We'll get to him in a second, obviously. But I want to get to Justin Gianelli so I can get it back here to on more friendlier terrain. But Justin, give me your thoughts. I know you were very happy about the outcome of the Super Bowl, but set the tables for those who are watching and listening for us here on Sportswire Radio and throughout our different streaming providers on your impressions on our new Super Bowl champions, those Los Angeles Rams.
yeah, I mean, early on, it looked like the Rams were going to have one of those days where they were just going to go up and down the field. The first couple of drives, they get those touchdowns. You had the botched hold on the extra point when it was to make 13-3 after the second touchdown. And then once Beckham went down, you saw how thin they were, how thin the Rams were on offense. And, Kendall Blanton also left the game with an injury as well. So, you were already down your starting tight end. Tyler Higbee didn't play. Beckham gets hurt. So you were and it was hard to really trust Van Jefferson, because Van Jefferson was more of just a deep threat. And then, you saw early in the second half, because the game got closed to 13-10 at halftime. And then you had the touchdown to T. Higgins, in which the refs missed the face mask call. But, Rams get the ball back, and on the very first pass, the ball thrown to Ben Skoranek gets tipped and intercepted. And at that point, you think that the Bengals have all the momentum. But I thought Raheem Morris, the defensive coordinator for the Rams, did a terrific job with the second half adjustments. I think he may have saved his overload packages for the second half, and you clearly saw a difference in the pressure. And it wasn't just Aaron Donald. I mean, Ernest Jones, Von Miller, everybody was getting to Joe Burrow, and that Bengal offensive line basically looked like that same offensive line that we saw against Tennessee. And, after Matthew Stafford threw that second interception, he took care of the football. And, they granted they weren't doing much until that last drive. And, good on Sean McVay for finally waking up and, going away from the run. To a point, I admire a team sticking with the run and being balanced. But as we got deep into the second half and late in the third quarter, you can clearly see that the Cincinnati defense just was winning their matchups, and they were, holding Cam Akers, they were holding Darrell Henderson and Sony Michel to just 1, maybe even 2 yards at most, and there was no consistency. And for 3 quarters, Cooper Kupp was held in check. But that fourth quarter, Sean McVay was like, I have to go to him no matter what. And Cooper Kupp showed why he was the best receiver in the NFL this year. He continued to get open. And, Joe Burrow on the other side was just not able to get into any kind of rhythm, because it felt like every other play, the Rams were recording a sack. And even when they did, and even in the second half when they did try to run the ball, the Rams started to penetrate the line much better. And that Tyler Boyd drop, a guy who had 0 drops the entire season, he picked the absolute worst time for his first drop of the season. And, I think to Donald's point, once that happened, you knew the Rams were going to eventually find that final drive. And, Matthew Stafford was going to have his moment in the sun by putting together a game-winning drive.
And he certainly did that. And, of course, our very good friend, Mr. John Gonzalez, chimes in. Has been giving me some voice messages on Facebook, so I appreciate the voice messages. In fact, one of my favorite ones was when John did the brute force. He did brute force. That was funny. So I definitely appreciate that, John. And I'm sure Brad will have an opinion on that in a few minutes. But John chimes in here. We put it on the board here. He says, Bengals have had every opportunity to win, but it just wasn't meant to be, as the Bengals offensive line failed them at the end. Yeah, definitely, especially in the second half. No question. That's exactly how I felt, John. Very good points there. Patrick, always good to be with you, my friend, and wanted to get your impressions on our new Super Bowl champions, the Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah, congrats to the Rams. I agree with everything that's been said. It was a really good game. It was really entertaining. I thought the Odell Beckham that injury, the unfortunate injury,
shifted the game a little bit. Yep,
it shifted the game big time. But at the end, I don't know what the NFL does now going forward with the referees, because on both sides they missed calls on both ways, and
2 egregious ones.
You would just you just hate to see at the end of a game, and I'm not saying that call is the reason, but the end of the game, the last 2 minutes, to see so many penalties, one way or the other, whichever way it goes, you just hate to see that.
It's a good point.
I mean, yeah. But the biggest takeaway is, look, I've been bashing Matthew Stafford the whole year, so if I'm willing to bash him, I got to be willing to praise him. He came up huge. came up huge in the biggest game of his career, and he showed that he was worth the trade. He's a top player in the league, and he did everything that was asked of him in that last drive, finding Cooper Kupp, like Donald and Justin said, and he was making some extraordinary throws when he had to. And it's just, it's tough because I think the last 7, or was it the last 12 teams that lost the Super Bowl didn't get back the following year. So it's going to be tough to see if the Bengals can even, in a stacked and loaded AFC, if they even get back to the AFC title game next year. I think that would be, pretty ambitious. So.
And we have somebody in here real quick before I get to John Gonzalez. That is, of course, the assistant coach for the SJC Lion Golden Eagles men's basketball team. That is Coach Jason Gordies, who's been here a couple of times. And he says, is that an SJC shirt that you have on, Tom? Yes, it is an SJC shirt. In fact, I'm wondering why the Brute Force Brad Weiss doesn't have his on at this point, considering he's the alumni here. But obviously, yes, Coach Gordies. So I figure when we speak about the team later on, probably when the guys are all in bed, because they have an early game tomorrow at Mount St. Vincent, I figured I'd support the team here for sure and come away and pull it out. In fact, I actually had an NYPD shirt on because I was given to it from a police officer. That's a different conversation for a different time, but I figured let me put on my SJC shirt because at this point, the entire team messages me left and right, so let me support the team. But yes, that is an SJC shirt. Let me get to John Gonzalez's comments here. Also, I want to make sure everybody follows the boys, of course, on Instagram at SJCMBB and Twitter at SJC_MBB, because the boys will be in the postseason. We will definitely talk about them later on, and they will be in the Skyline Conference Tournament. They are the number 5 seed. They are 10-5 right now as we speak. And John Gonzalez chimes in here and says, Cooper Kupp has become the best overall wide receiver in the NFL. He dominated the playoffs. Yeah, Donald, I think you had mentioned on the show that you did with Rob that he should have been an MVP candidate much more seriously. So I think
I don't understand. That they need to end this trend where wide receivers don't get MVP consideration. He should absolutely be the MVP as far as I'm concerned.
He got one first place vote. That's it.
That's madness. You can't really justify that for what he did. This absolutely insane numbers. You put up Madden numbers.
The worst part of it is, with Cooper Kupp not winning MVP this year, it basically just tells you wide receivers are not allowed to win MVP. They're just not, because he arguably had the greatest season ever for a wide receiver, and the fact
you're not going to top that.
And he did win Offensive Player of the Year, and congratulations to that. But you're basically saying he can never win. Wide receivers can never win MVP. Because how many receivers are going to have a better year than that? It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to top. So you're basically all but eliminating anybody but the occasional running back.
Yeah, the occasional year where somebody gets to 2,000 yards. And go ahead, Chris, jump in.
It was arguably the greatest one season by a wide receiver ever.
Yeah,
regular season, postseason, Super Bowl, everything. And like you said, he didn't get the MVP. Like, what else can he possibly do? He put up the greatest season by a wide receiver, and he got one vote, and the only vote he got was because the guy didn't like Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, it was Bob Marcus from Chicago. The guy who said he wasn't going to vote for Rodgers.
Imagine if Aaron Rodgers was this cool dude that everybody loved. He wouldn't have got it. He wouldn't even got one vote.
Oh my God.
So you're telling me then Aaron Rodgers is going into Barry Bonds territory soon?
I don't know if it's that bad. But
Nah, not that bad.
I don't know. Let's hope not, for his sake. But yeah.
Well, stay tuned, I guess. Stay tuned.
Yeah,
I
I know.
Any other impressions for you, Chris, when it came to the Super Bowl champion Los Angeles Rams in the game Sunday?
Well, you know what? I thought early on, the Rams were playing the game and exactly the way I thought it was going to go. I thought the Rams were going to win the game pretty convincingly. But once Beckham got hurt, I thought, wow, that's going to be the turning point in the game. And I thought it was going to be the Bengals game after that. But you know what? The second half, they did say, I don't know if it was on right after the game or the next day, I heard that the Rams defense was running more stunts, and that freed up Aaron Donald to be more man-to-man with the guard.
Well, I'm going to get to Aaron Donald in a second because if you listen to talk radio throughout the week, he was a big topic for sure. So
yeah,
I think
I got
guys,
things to say about him too.
Yeah, we'll get into him for sure.
Yeah, and other than what you guys are saying, I think on that last drive that the Bengals had, it was 2nd and 1, then it was 3rd and 1, and they kept Pirine in instead of bringing in Mixon. I thought that was a mistake too. You got a guy who's one of the best running backs in the league, and you're not going to use him on a 3rd and 1. So I didn't understand that decision. But otherwise, you know what? Like you guys said, it was a great game. It was a great ending to an unbelievable season, and then an even more unbelievable playoff. Every game, came down to a field goal.
It was a fun playoff. I have to say this was one of the more enjoyable NFL playoffs I can remember.
It's one of the best I've ever seen. I'm going to say it's the best one because every game was unbelievable. Like every game was just.
Yeah, there wasn't too many blowouts in the playoffs this year.
No.
There really wasn't any.
There was
obviously
the
Cardinals Rams.
wild card round, but that's about it.
The wild card round. That was
Cardinals Rams was a blowout. That was and then you had the Chiefs and Steelers. Of course, the Brute Force's beloved Steelers. Other than that, there really wasn't any blowout.
Yep. So other than that, man, you guys hit all the points. So there's really nothing else to say. I would have liked to have seen Donald get Super Bowl MVP. That would have been great. Because I think he deserves, but Cup. Hey, listen, Cup is
that you can't argue.
No, I mean,
I will give one sliver of defense, even though I agree with Chris and I hammered the point home. When I was talking about the whole 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 with Samaje Perine. In his slight defense, if you put Mixon in the game there, you're basically handing the Rams the play.
Yeah,
because
you're right.
You're basically telling them, okay, we're running the ball. And so he wanted to stay with deception and stick to his Pirine's my 3rd down guy. Pirine's my 4th down passing.
By that, but I still want to go down with my best. You know what I mean?
I totally agree with that, but that's just like the only
that's probably what it was. I think but listen, if I'm going down, you got to go down with your best. It's as simple as that. Even if you didn't want to maybe play action, if what you're going by what you're saying on that 3rd and 1, when you got Mixon back there, maybe you play action.
Play action because you have 2 plays.
Right. So, whatever.
Did anyone else think that Pirine could have dove for that ball?
Yeah.
That last throw.
Yeah, the final one, he kind of just. I don't know.
It was a miracle he got it off. I mean, my first inclination was a
miracle he got rid of it.
My first inclination was somehow the Bengals are going to continue this drive. The fact he got
if I'm willing to dive and get a carpet burn watching the Super Bowl, just watching the play, and Samaje Perine is just standing there like.
Yeah, and has anyone seen the still footage of it from the body? Like you're looking at it, the bottom of your screen, Jalen Ramsey falls down.
Yep.
And Jamar Chase
was wide open.
7 yards wide open, but Burrow never had time to see him.
Right. If Donald doesn't get to him,
that reminds me of it was the Chiefs and Bengals in that last series where when Mahomes got sacked and there was somebody open and he kept running around and dancing around and he got sacked. I think it was not play, but it reminded me in some ways or another the same. But the brute force is obviously with us here, and always good to hear from him. And I almost have to ask, are you wearing an LA Brew Crew sweater? Is that what it is that I'm looking here on the bottom of the screen?
Plainview.
Yeah, Plainview. Why, for whatever reason, I really must need glasses because for whatever reason, I'm seeing LA Brew Crew because that was the softball team, of course. That was the talk of 2020 and 2021. But obviously, good to be with you, my friend. I know a lot of people are going to want to hear what you have to say to Brute Force when it comes to the Super Bowl. We were talking about it certainly off the air during the week. And give me your impressions for those who are watching this and listening to this on our new Super Bowl champions, the Los Angeles Rams.
Absolutely. Good evening, guys. And most importantly, good evening, John Gonzalez. Because once again, John Gonzalez, I'm going to start with you, my friend. I told you after last week's show, why don't you listen? Why don't you listen? Okay, I told you the Rams were going to win, and you went against me, and you were wrong again, John Gonzalez. All right,
they covered, right?
Yes, I'm talking about the pick. I'm talking about the pick. Yes, the cover. Yeah, that was right. But the pick itself, I told him to pick the Rams and did not listen. So, John Gonzalez, come on, man. But seriously about the game, obviously it was a great game, as you guys said. It was very entertaining. Even though, like you guys had mentioned, the referees, I mean, come on. I mean, how do you miss that pass interference with that face mask? I mean, how do you miss that? To let the Bengals get a wide open touchdown at the beginning of the second half. You can't miss that call. That was extremely like a big call. And then, yeah, of course, everybody's talking about the quote unquote makeup call that they had at the end of the game on that PI, late in the game. So the referees got to do a better job, in my opinion. But overall, obviously, Matthew Stafford, Patrick Trotty's guy, came through in the clutch. Definitely, was the guy who we see as a very good quarterback that just hasn't gotten recognition because he's playing for John Gonzalez's Detroit Lions for 12 years. So, he finally deserved the recognition that he got. He played really well. Obviously, it helps to have Cooper Kupp, but ultimately, I mean, you have Odell out. You had, you had other injuries. You had tight ends who I've never heard of before playing, and ultimately, Matthew Stafford found a way to find Cooper Kupp. And Cooper Kupp, oh my God, this guy's footwork is absolutely unbelievable. I mean, you just watch his feet on all these plays. I mean, this guy's got magical feet, getting guys and getting open somehow, some way. So everything you guys said about Cooper Kupp is true. I think he deserves to be an MVP. Obviously, he deserved to be the Super Bowl MVP. But ultimately, he is a great wide receiver. I got to see Ben Gruberger the other day, and we remember his comments, basically saying that Cooper Kupp was some other ordinary wide receiver. Well, I told him he was wrong. He's 100% wrong because Cooper Kupp right now.
That was the first thing. Knowing you with Ben Gruberger, you didn't think, "Hey Ben, how's it going?" You made sure to remind him that on the air he had those comments. I don't even think you introduced yourself and said, "Hey Ben, how's it going?" It was more just to unleash on him about that.
We had a team dinner last night, so I just brought it up as we were watching sports. So, certainly, it's all love and jokes. But in the end, Cooper Kupp, him and Devontae Adams, to me, are juggling for best wide receiver. And basically, based on what we saw in the playoffs, I think Cooper Kupp right now deserves to be number one. And ultimately, the Rams are a team to be reckoned with. I don't see Aaron Donald retiring. Sean McVay is not retiring. So ultimately,
Sean McVay retiring? The dude's like, what, 25? He's not
retiring.
retiring.
There were the rumors out there that he was going to stop coaching, but I think it's
have you seen his wife? I mean, listen.
That everybody knew that he wasn't. So ultimately, I'm excited to see what the Rams do going forward. And for the Cincinnati Bengals, I got to see Billy Heenan. He was in all good spirits. He was very happy with the season, even though he was disappointed in win the Super Bowl. He couldn't be happier as a Cincinnati Bengals fan. That for many, many years now, they can be very competitive and be a team that I think will get back to the Super Bowl very soon. So as long as they fix that offensive line, which is hot trash, that's basically the main reason why they lost this Super Bowl was the offensive line. And I think Billy Heenan and hopefully everybody in Cincinnati knows that they can fix that and they can get back to the Super Bowl with this team.
No, I think certainly with the Bengals, I think you have a lot to be proud of as a fan. Again, this was a franchise that had never even won a road playoff game. This was a franchise that had won 6 games the prior 2 years, and they won a very hard-fought AFC North, and they were able to win a few games that most pundits probably didn't have them winning, and that was the Titans and certainly in Kansas City. So a lot to be proud of. And, Brad, you sort of stole my thunder, so I'm going to talk about it very quickly because I do want to move on to different topics here. So I'll ask everybody then this question. Brad kind of touched upon it. Aaron Donald, nobody thinks he's retiring then?
No. I think honestly NBC was trying to just fill 5 hours. I really don't. Between that and the McVay report, I mean, I think they're just trying to fill 5 hours.
But Boomer Esiason's take on it was he felt that it's probably a motive to renegotiate his contract. Anybody buy that?
But he says that. But he also says that about everybody. In terms, like he says the same thing about Russell Wilson. He says that about Aaron Rodgers. I don't think the contract is. They may do a restructure of the contract just so they can kind of wiggle around the cap so that they can bring guys back, like a Von Miller. So, I mean, because they do have a list of free agents that they'd like to bring back. But I don't see Aaron Donald going anywhere. I don't see Sean McVay going anywhere. at all anytime soon.
No way. Sean again.
I
Chris,
was gonna say I don't think either one's gonna be there for a long time.
Okay.
Because to me, like I think Donald's he's already what 30, 31?
He's 30,
31.
turned 31.
Yeah, and not that that's old or anything, but you know what? These guys, with the money these guys are making now, he's done it all. He's got nothing to prove. He's arguably, he's a top whatever defensive tackle of all time, wherever you want to put him. I know some people are calling him the best defensive player of all time. I think that's
that's a little much.
We
At
all
least
know
for the generation, he's the best, but he's worked. He can still climb the ladder.
Oh yeah, he's
to be the greatest of all time. But
yeah,
I don't think he's quite there.
But what's he been in the league now? Was his 9th season in the league, right?
This is his 8th season.
He's not the greatest defensive player of all time. I mean, that's LT. He's not going to touch that unless he has an unbelievable next 5 seasons where.
I mean, I think of even a Reggie White. I mean, Reggie White played forever. Do you really think Reggie White wasn't as good as Aaron Donald? I mean,
Aaron Donald, he's in the discussion right now for greatest defensive tackle of all time because there's 4 or 5 other guys that you could put in that, that conversation. So I don't even think he's there, but I think a guy like McVay, he's going to coach for a few more years probably, and then go into TV because TV's paying a lot of money now.
Good.
Anybody see what Tony Romo's making? I mean, his contract is like through the roof. I mean, you almost want to go to TV, especially now because
it's like 17, 18 million per year.
Yeah, 18 million.
Less stress, right? You're not on the road as much. It's just,
and there's more outlets. Amazon Prime is getting into football. I'm sure you're going to see Netflix. I'm sure you're going to see HBO. All these different outlets out there. That I mean, to me, it's almost worth it. John Gonzalez has the only one not coming back is OBJ, who I think he is done. Does anybody think OBJ is done or?
No, I don't think he's done.
Yeah, he'll be.
You know what I think might happen. I think the Rams. I think the Rams are going to do him a favor. They're going to sign him to a 1-year contract. He will probably miss at least the first 13 weeks, but he'll be able to rehab in the Rams facility. Train in the Rams facility and get his strength. Because if I'm not mistaken, he's scheduled to get surgery within the next week or so. So you're looking, if you're looking at a 9-month timeline, we are looking at close to Thanksgiving.
What about what they do with Major League Baseball a lot, or what they did?
We'll get to that.
Guys, I've never heard of that.
With Tommy John surgery, they would sign somebody to a 2-year deal and basically backload the money for what they consider to be his fully rehabbed year.
So I've seen
Odell a 2-year deal.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I remember a specific pitcher, but I can't pinpoint his name. But yeah, I've seen a couple of guys.
I think they did that with Clevenger.
Or even
that's it right there. And Clevenger should be due to come back this year.
Yep.
Who's the pitcher on Boston now? Not Sale. Who's their number 2?
Eovaldi.
Tampa Bay did that with him.
Okay.
With the year when he was with us with the Yankees, he got hurt, and then the next year Tampa Bay signed him, basically to rehab. I think for a 2-year deal or something, just like you said. And
you could sign OBJ to a 2-year contract, make it a vet minimum, or give him like a roster bonus or something. So like it kind of like maneuvers with the cap, and then you pay him for 2023 when you know he should be at full strength, and you could even still potentially get him back for potential playoff run.
All right, and John Gonzalez had previously said LT is the GOAT, not even close. I mean, I might give it to LT because, again, I got to work in wrestling. He was the first, I guess, football player to have a great wrestling match because he was actually in the main event of WrestleMania 11 against the late Bam Bam Bigelow. And John also chimes in here and says Wiltworth might be done.
I think he announced his retirement.
Anybody have any further thought on that before the crack staff confirms that? Anything?
If I'm not mistaken, I believe he announced it.
Yeah, I think it's perfect timing for him to walk away this age, this stage of his career.
I think he won Man of the Year too this year, didn't he?
Yes, he did. Yes,
he did. It's the perfect time to walk out. Man of the Year.
It's a Super Bowl.
A Super Bowl. That's it.
You're not getting much better than that.
Doesn't get any better than that. Yeah, doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, I mean it's called riding into the sunset. I mean, and he had a terrific game too. I mean, the Ram offensive line Well, they didn't run block great. They pass protect extremely well.
He's had an unbelievable career.
Certainly has. I mean, and I can't quite anything according to the crack staff find anything definitively, but certainly this would be, as most would point out here, this would be certainly the time to go out here. So that's some of the Super Bowl talk for now, and maybe we'll come back to football in a little while. But I do want to, before I touch upon the NBA, because the Brute Force, I can't wait to almost hear what he has to say, especially when it comes to Donald being here, when it comes to the New York Knicks. But I do want to touch upon baseball, and now that we officially know we're going to have a lack of any baseball movement. So let me get my baseball guys in here first, and let me go with Justin first, and give me your thoughts right now on the news now that we know that we're not going to have any news when it comes to Major League Baseball.
Well, I mean, they are supposedly meeting next week, and their plans on meeting every day. So I'm hoping that there officially is finally some urgency, although I don't, I still have my doubts with that. I still think we're in for a long one. The fact that every time a side makes a proposal, it takes another 5-6 days for a counter, or if there's no counter and the other side just walks away. I mean, we got to stop having these 15-minute meetings. And I mean, first of all, they're not even. I believe they're going to I don't know where they're going, but they are flying to meet face to face. Now, apparently, a lot of these have been done via Zoom, so that can actually explain why some of these have ended so quickly. But I hope that both sides see the urgency, and they basically have 10 days to at least get into camp. Forget the spring training games. I mean, at least get them into camp so that they're at least getting their arms, their bodies, I mean, obviously they're all training and such, but they're getting the ramp up necessary for a March 31st opening day. I mean, the clock is ticking. The clock is ticking, and, I certainly have my doubts. My belief is that June 1st the season starts.
I got to be honest with you, considering baseball. You know what? I got to be honest, and I'm going to upset some people, and I'm a diehard baseball fan. I want to get Brad's perspective next, because Brad, obviously being a player recently, I want to get his perspective on it. But, I mean, honestly, watching baseball in March when it's 30 degrees outside in some of these cities where it's still snow on the ground potentially, I mean, look, they could come back May 15th. I mean, I'd be happy at that, honestly, because I really don't like watching baseball when it comes to 30, 40-degree weather, especially here in New York, because you just don't know what you're going to get. Yes, it was 65 this morning, but you could still get 30 degrees. I mean, 40 degrees. So maybe baseball, maybe they're in a backhanded way going to get it right. But John Gonzalez, before I get to Brad, of course, he says MLB lockout continues. On a brighter note, the USFL draft is on February 22nd. So, yeah, listen, the USFL, we're probably going to be talking about that on next week's show, John. So, I mean, if you want to chime in and give me some people you might get expected.
Maybe a mock draft of the USFL?
Listen, I mean, I got to fill the time. I got 2 hours to fill each Friday. So I got to put it on Roku and then another streaming provider. So, I mean, at this point, I got to fill the time. So, I mean, if you want to have USFL draft coverage, by all means, John, give me the scouting report. And the 411 is, they used to say when there was this station, it was called, I think it was the Video Box. They used to play all types of hip-hop and R&B videos. This is way back in the day. But be that as it may, the Brute Force, I mean, you were a former player. You've obviously can kind of sort of get in the minds of a player. And we've talked about this, I feel, unfortunately, in 2020 when they didn't come back right away during the COVID era. I mean, from a player's standpoint, in terms of getting ready for a season, because Justin kind of touched upon that, because I don't know if you can still make up for the fact you're not in camp, you're not doing those certain things here. I mean, how do you stay ready in case whenever that call is going to be when we have a season?
Yeah, well, you got to do things obviously on your own. I think there's been video leaked out, and actually he spoke as well, Brandon Nimmo, getting reps in the cage and getting reps on the field, which is, positive. That's, one thing that you can do. But ultimately, we all know in team sports, Tom, that, one of the most important times of, team sport is the preseason, or the before the season starts as a team. And ultimately, we talked about it last week. It's, we call it spring training, but normally it's not really spring; it's winter. But this year, it's going to be.
We had a line for that in prior shows a few years back. I'm trying to forget what did we have? We had a funny one-liner for that. I'd have to go back to the tape.
Yeah, we got to go back, but at this point, that's all we can do with Major League Baseball because we can't go forward. We can only go back, and at this point, it's going to be summer training, like Justin Gianelli said.
That was the line we used. We used to use summer training. That was it.
Yeah, it's going to be summer training because Justin said it. I mean, I think June 1st is very optimistic at this point. Because baseball right now, they cannot get their act together. I mean, these guys cannot agree on anything. I personally don't think they're going to. I think both sides are just nowhere close, in my opinion. And then as a player, it's just like, listen, we're all dying to play. If you're a player in your sport, and that's the sport that you've committed to, like all these players have. They're dying to get on the field. They're dying to be back with the team. It's been a while. So ultimately, as a player, your patience becomes very intolerable. Like you don't want to wait any longer. And then, eventually maybe you try to meet teammates, outside, but you can't do much because you can't really be at the facilities. You can't be at specific places together. So it's just a mess, Tom Bryce. So as a player, I'd be very frustrated. As a manager, listen, Buck Showalter is in Port St. Lucie, by the way. He's there for the minor leagues, which is ultimately great, to see the young players. But that's not what we're here for. We're here for a major league season right now to get ready for a major league season. So the fact that even Buck Showalter said it, and you guys know I'm a coach now, he said it, where he basically said, yeah, it's nice to start getting to know the players over a phone call or a Zoom, but it's nothing like seeing them in person and working with them on the field and getting to communicate with them in person. Like, there's a big difference. So ultimately, it's frustrating, Tom, and the MLB is just a tragic national embarrassment. If it weren't for the New York Knicks, I think they're just on the same path right now, both extremely embarrassing for specific reasons. But Major League Baseball is an entire sport, and the fact that they can't get this together is embarrassing. And the last thing I'll say, Tom, they might not be playing, but you said it earlier. You mentioned the Brew Crew. I just got that message this week. The Brew Crew will be back in March.
Oh, the boys are coming back early this year, so I guess the Superman brothers are going to be around. I'm assuming Googs and Fitzpatrick and everybody from Sal Camasuli. I mean, boy, it looks like we'll be doing Brew Crew updates. Instead of Mets and Yankees updates, we'll be doing Brew Crew updates from Eisenhower Park. So it might be at this point, I might need to get my binoculars and go to Eisenhower Park and have live baseball coverage. So
they might as well just put our games on SNY at this point. What else are they going to put on? They're going to
put them on Northeast Streaming Sports Channel. Listen, Linda and Mac McGrath are always looking for live content, so maybe that's what we have to do.
4 years since I've been in any kind of baseball league.
Well, I mean, and I'd probably say I'm about more than that. Let's just put it that way. I'm trying to remember the last time I was in any league. But, before I get to some of the guys here, Brad, and I just had on Linda Day, the head coach of the John Jay College women's basketball team, and I talked with Coach Day, and she was talking about how her players were dying to be on the court. How they waited so long, over a year, with everything with COVID. And then, now, Donald, we go and talk baseball with these guys. It's like, if they come back, they come back. And these poor college athletes that we cover here on Sportswire Radio, that they couldn't even see each other for close to 17, 18, 19 months. And yet Major League Baseball is really going to screw this up, Donald. I mean, what's your impressions of all this?
Did you guys read the statement from the MLBPA?
Yeah.
So MLB announced today that it must postpone the start of spring training games. This is false. Nothing requires the league to delay the start of spring training, much like nothing required the league's decision to implement the lockout in the first place. Despite these decisions by the league, players remain committed to the negotiating process. I don't actually think that that tweet helps anything.
No.
Because I don't believe that either side have negotiated in good faith, because these 15-minute meetings are farcical. I mean, there's no reason that they should have waited this long to have these. We're hearing now that next week they will start to have daily meetings. What stopped them doing that like this month or even last month? I mean, what are these 15-minute meetings all about? I mean, literally go get a cup of coffee takes longer than these meetings. Like, what?
I guess they don't have paid Zoom accounts, right? Because 15-minute Zoom.
Exactly. I mean, listen. If you think of like politics, like to get bipartisanship, they lock themselves in a room and they battle it out for hours and hours and hours.
Oh, listen,
and hours.
I can tell you stories. Listen, how they used to get the New York State budget done. What you used to have is the Republican Senate leader, the Democratic Assembly leader, and usually the Democratic governor. And they would just sit there for week after week and come up with parts and parcels on how to come over with a budget that keeps both parties happy, and they would get it done. They would call it the sausage factory. That's what they would call it.
And that is called negotiating. These guys are not negotiating. If you present an offer and go, this is our offer, do you like it? No. Okay, then bye. That's not a negotiating. That's nothing. That's a joke. And that's what they've been doing. So neither side have negotiated in good faith. And that statement to me does not read that they're trying to quickly get a resolution here. Is once again the MLBPA going, it's all the owner's fault. It's all the owner's fault. And that doesn't help anything because they've been saying it for 2 years. They've got their backup because they already agreed to a terrible CBA prior. So now they want to, dig their heels in and make things a little bit more difficult for the owners this time. That's part of it. Second of all, I just think that they don't like negotiating with the fact that Manfred is one of the worst commissioners in the history of sports. And that doesn't help anything either. And I just think that the MLBPA are digging their heels in on this. There's no negotiating. And it's farcical. There's absolutely no reason why they couldn't have done this months ago. Or even last year. There's nothing to stop them to have actually worked out a plan on how to make sure this doesn't happen. Because they don't realize that the more this goes on, the more fans are just going to go, why are we still investing ourselves in the sport?
Well, they're just going to forget about it. They're going to move on and do different things. They're going to
my point is, the fans are going to go, why am I going to invest in a sport that doesn't invest in us? Because it's just quite clear they don't really care about the fans because this has been going on for years now. I mean, the 60-game season was a joke. And then they filled in all these stupid gimmicky things to try and make it more interesting with these stupid extra inning rules and 7-inning nonsense and stuff like that. It was gimmicks. And now they're selling us this nonsense. It's really hard to get invested in something like this when the NFL is going from strength to strength. The NBA is going from strength to strength. You got ice hockey going from strength to strength. What on earth is baseball doing?
You got the Daytona 500. You got NASCAR. You got golf. I mean, you got so many options. You got UFC. You got obviously. Yep. You got football. You know, it's football. The rest of the world. Right. Yeah. But the point of the matter is we have so many options. And John Gonzalez chimes in here and says, look, I'm a Mets fan and was looking forward to the season start on time, but it just doesn't look good. Then he also chimes in here and says, I agree. Manfred is awful, needs to be replaced. Yeah, I think at this point, I mean, if you look at the other sports, I mean, Roger Goodell and Gary Bettman were never the most popular commissioners, but compared to Rob Manfred, they're almost like geniuses, which is kind of a sad state of affairs here. But, I mean, for the Talking Rivals guys here, I mean, very quickly, I mean, is there any optimism here? I'm sure on Monday's show you'll touch upon it, but, I mean, to me, just for baseball, it just – I don't know. I mean, I have a follow-up question after I get you guys' thoughts on it, but just give me your thoughts on the fact that now we're going to see at least no spring training games until March 5th at the least.
I'm a little more optimistic because this is I love baseball. I know everyone else here does too. I'm just going to be optimistic and try to speak it into existence. I think I'll say that regular season games are played in April. I just think there's too much money on the table. Even if they both just say, screw it, we'll meet dead in the middle on every single thing we can't agree on. We're still going to make money. Both sides will. Manfred is a lot of things. Most of them not good. But, you know.
He reminds me of, remember Batman Returns, Christopher Walken's character? That's who right now Rob Manfred reminds me of. That's what exactly he reminds me.
Once a week for 15 minutes. That's not even a sitcom. It's not even. This is a tragedy. It's not even a comedy. I mean, without commercials, you're still getting 22 minutes of Seinfeld.
I just said that. Yeah.
Yep. So, but I think that I really hope there is baseball in April because what it took for fans to come back to the game in the late 90s, I'm afraid that it's going to be more gimmicks and more home runs and more whatever. All the gimmicks are on the table now. I mean, there were men on second, nobody out to start an inning. That's just that's the Brew
What's
Crew.
next? Home run derbies to decide after the game. After
That's
11,
softball.
12,
That's beer league
13.
softball stuff. It's like you can't like.
I'm glad you brought that up,
On the
Patrick,
backyard.
the 94 cancellation, because I think it's going to be even more difficult for them now because we're in a different era now. Back in 1994, baseball was still America's pastime, and it was still very much at the forefront of American thoughts. And nowadays, in the modern era, in the era of instant gratification and fast pace, and people are starting to look elsewhere. And
I can't have a
people are
conversation
looking
with
elsewhere
friends about
even
baseball.
prior to this. Yeah, basketball is so much more popular than it ever was in '94, and football is now in a different
Football
planet
is much more
altogether.
popular than it was also in
Absolutely,
'94.
100%. So baseball is now really struggling just to scrape for the third biggest sport at the moment. And in this instant gratification era, people are gonna start looking elsewhere, man. That's just the way it is.
See what you said, and I'll get Chris's thought on it. And what you exactly said, Donald, was that baseball, it's very slow to watch, and that was what actually somebody that's a friend of the show that's been on here a couple different times, and somebody who's watched Brad play a bunch of different times. That was the Brooklyn Cowbell, Daniel Weiss, and because we talked about college baseball, because college baseball is starting this week, and he was like, well, I'm not going to go to college baseball games this weekend or this season because the game's too slow. I'm there 3 and 4 hours and it's hard for me to get into it. Whereas with basketball, like Donald pointed out, basketball is a very, very quick game. You're in, you're out, and it's fast paced and it's exciting. And baseball doesn't have any of those same qualities. I mean, so Chris here, is there any optimism? I mean, what do you think?
I'm kind of with Patrick because I think Monday they're going to start meeting daily now this week. So I think that both sides, I think John Heyman tweeted, I actually laughed, but he might be right, is that there might be a little bit more urgency now, finally. Now, but that's, I think, is embarrassing because there should have been urgency from day one to get this done. It made no sense. It's actually an embarrassment that this started in December, the first week of December, and they didn't talk for about a month. They didn't have a sit down for like a month. How does that, you were talking about it, that's not even negotiating. If you're not talking, you're not negotiating. So it's a disgrace what both sides have been doing. And I don't understand, some fans are taking the player's side or the owner's side. Don't take either side.
I don't take anybody's side at this point.
Well said.
At the end of the day, the CBA is going to get done, right? Whether it's this week, next week, or in a month or in 2 months, whenever. It's going to get done. And guess what? The owners are still going to be billionaires, and the players, most of them, are going to be the millionaires, right? No matter what. And who's going to pay the bill? Us. We're the idiots, right? The people that go to the games, that buy all the stuff, that watch them on TV. We pay the cable bills and all that. We pay for all that stuff. So we're going to pay the bill that's going to come, because after that, someone's going to get paid more. One way or the other, someone's going to get paid, right? The players or the owners. And we got to pay for it. And it's a disgrace on how they're treating the game, how they're treating this whole thing. Like, it's like, all right, we'll see you next week and we'll talk then. No. Now you got to do this now. You're already late. You're already going to delay. We already heard it today, right? That the spring training is going to be delayed. So this is ridiculous. It's an embarrassment. And I hope and pray that the fans stay away from the games. I know they won't, but I hope they do, because we need to stand up and say, you guys are destroying this game.
I gotta move on here, but before I do that, because I'm on a timer here because of obviously streaming and scheduling providers, and I need to make an announcement. But I'm gonna ask everybody here and keep it as brief as you can. And I can't believe I'm gonna say this here, but if Major League Baseball doesn't get it right here, and let's say the season starts, who knows when? Listen, there's even a possibility because the NHL had problems with the lockouts in the past where they had seasons were missed in significant time that was certainly delayed in the seasons as recent as 2013. But I'm going to ask everybody this question here and give me your thoughts on it. If Major League Baseball doesn't get this right, and God forbid they have a 60-game season again, who knows? It could even be less than that. Is there a possibility that even Major League Baseball could drop below hockey? Anybody's have a thought on that?
I don't think so. I don't
I
think
can see that.
Hockey.
The game's
No.
in crisis right now. It's baseball doesn't have an identity. There's, you always hear this in other avenues of society. Sure. Existential crisis. They are the people that are in charge of baseball don't love the game. They think it needs to be tweaked. They think it needs to be, at the very least, tweaked, if not drastically changed. And with that, you're going to lose a lot of people. You might gain some in younger generation, but then you're going to lose some of the old timers. And I could see hockey for a while filling that void, but.
Okay. I mean, for you, Brad, because you're a former player, I mean, what's your thoughts on that? I mean, is there even a distinct possibility that baseball, if they don't get this right, could, drop that far behind?
That's really tough. I mean, that's a tough question because, there still are many people that love the game of baseball. But we talked about this last week where a lot of those people who love baseball are, due to what's going on right now, are losing interest by the day and, could potentially lose interest as a whole in the sport. And that's just not because we talked about how baseball is being, dumb in thinking that they're trying to persuade younger generation fans, to be fans of the game by doing all these different things. It's not working. It's not working at all. I could tell you from, being with younger kids, from being not that old myself, that, that's not working at all. And the older generation even, is not happy with what they're doing right now. So they're not pleasing anyone. So in the end, they're losing so many. And, it's hard to say that a sport like hockey is going to overtake them. But at this point, hockey's, doing very well. People enjoy hockey. I could potentially see it. And I'll throw out another sport, Tom, that is actually emerging. How about soccer? I think that's another one. People joke about the MLS and, joke about, all these different, Euro leagues and stuff like that. But soccer's expanding.
I think if you go on a field in Long Island, you go in Staten Island where I am or in parts of Brooklyn, they're not playing baseball like they did 20 years ago. They're playing soccer or football for the rest of the world. That's what it is. I mean, Jason Facino was checked in before. He's obviously the coach of the Five-Town Sound women's and men's soccer teams. I mean, we've talked about it with Coach Facino in the past. Kids are playing soccer. They're not playing baseball like it was 20 years ago, even 15 years ago. It's almost the demographics don't favor baseball in this country. I got to be honest. I mean, I'm going to put it out there. The demographics in terms of Major League Baseball does not favor them one bit, especially in our suburban neighborhoods. Again, like Suffolk and Nassau County, like parts of Staten Island and in Brooklyn. You look on those diamonds and those fields, they turned into soccer fields. It's a different world. It's not what it used to be.
Absolutely. So in the end, again, it's a tough question, but I would have to lean towards agreeing with Patrick. I think that hockey will take over eventually. I think baseball's just headed in a really bad direction. And I just, obviously we know what needs to happen. Rob Manfred needs to be out, and a lot of things need to be adjusted back to, like these ridiculous rules need to be just taken out. So ultimately, until that happens, I just think baseball is going to plummet, and they're going to lose a lot of fans.
And, of course, our very good friend Anthony J. Finkel, who's checking in, of course, from beautiful Florida, Cape Coral, Florida. I mean, certainly I would like to trade places with, of course, Mr. Fink, Big Fink, of course, who does a phenomenal job here. When he's in Brooklyn with DPH, and they're pretty much everywhere, and he chimes in and says, low-contact sport, less chance of concussions, safer for children. Yeah, I mean, that's soccer, I think, in a nutshell. That's certainly why I think soccer is popular. I think it's easy to play soccer. All you have to do is kick it, right? With baseball, you have to buy the gloves. Yeah, no, seriously. You have to buy gloves. You have to buy bats. Listen, I can tell you, and Anthony or anybody else can tell me if I'm wrong. When I was growing up, my parents were like, you're not playing in organized baseball leagues because we can't afford bats. We can't afford the gloves.
Now you have to pay for travel team registration.
Couldn't afford it. Listen, my parents said they gave me one option. You could play one sport. that was the most affordable sport that we could play. You know what that was? It was either basketball or bowling, because baseball was too expensive. Couldn't afford it. Hockey, too expensive. Soccer is probably the next one that you could play. And John Gonzalez chimes in and says hockey is expensive to play. Exactly, John.
Yeah,
and I always
very
have loved hockey since I'm a kid. But I couldn't ask my parents, hey, can I join a travel hockey league and cost $2,000-$3,000 plus in a year? They'd laugh at me, say, get out of here. So I mean, listen, that's how it was. And that's why I think baseball's got a big problem right now. And I think, again, a couple of different other things here. John chimes in and says, no, it won't drop below hockey, but baseball is not as popular as the past. I think that baseball right now is that they're becoming a regional game. I was checking attendance figures, and not to spend too long on baseball because I do have to go to other things, especially basketball, but I was looking at attendance figures, and I couldn't believe certain cities. I would have thought Cincinnati would have drew 3-4 million fans before COVID. The most the Reds ever drew was like 2.5 million in recent times. I was looking at even other cities like San Diego, and their attendance wasn't great. To me, baseball, looking at the attendance numbers, it's a regional
East Coast. East Coast.
And St. Louis and Los Angeles. It's St. Louis.
Dodgers draw $4 million a year.
Yes, I was going to say St. Louis, Los Angeles, San Francisco. Then you've got New York Yankees, Boston, and Chicago, the Cubs, because of Wrigley Field. And that's it.
Yeah,
Baseball's a very, very regional sport. Only when teams win, they draw. I mean, that's a big problem for baseball. I mean, so baseball's got a lot of issues. I mean, a lot of issues.
But in the same respect, though, there's a lot of people that still love baseball passionately.
I think baseball's the best sport to talk about. Listen, I got to be honest. Baseball, to me, and this is why I always identified with baseball as a kid, there was nothing like opening up a pack of Topps baseball cards. There was nothing like hanging out 3-4 hours a day and just sitting and talking with people about baseball, listening to the radio, going out there all my summers as a kid, growing up in Brooklyn, and I played wiffle ball, or I'd go down to the Diamond and play for 4 or 5 hours till I couldn't play anymore. I've always identified with baseball. I could talk baseball for hours, but unfortunately, baseball has done itself a lot of disservices, and we're not seeing that as much anymore. You don't see kids out in the park, like Brad said, playing baseball till.
Yeah, I mean, I did it as a kid in Webb Field in White Plains. I threw the ball around.
Not like that no more.
But listen, because the Yankees are the biggest fan base in the world, and you got the Red Sox, who are in Boston, they're obsessed with the Red Sox. And the Mets are the most loyal fan base you can find in any sport. And they are always going to come back. When baseball's there, you're going to have your Met fans, you're going to have your Yankee fans, you're going to have your Chicago Cub fans and the Dodgers and the Red Sox. They were always going to be there. And that's why baseball will always kind of hold its own. But is baseball completely lost? Yes. Do they have an identity? No. As you say, Patrick, our own commissioner does not like his own sport. And when you have that, it really reflects badly on the product and the negotiations. And that's where we are. But long term, I'm concerned about baseball's viability to the modern generation because they're kind of stuck in between. They keep trying to fiddle with things where it's really an old-fashioned game. And the best aspects of baseball are actually the old school aspects, which they're actually trying to remove. And that's hard for me as a fan because everything I associate baseball with was something stuff that I grew up with.
Absolutely.
But they're trying to get rid of that now. And it's hard to watch. It's not an easy game to watch. When I was a kid, I could sit and I could watch 5-6 hour ball games. No problem.
Absolutely. Well, you could listen to it on the radio.
No problem. I'd sit 15 innings and I wouldn't change.
100%. In fact, baseball for me, I maybe I'm in the minority for this, but I used to love just listening to baseball on the radio. I would love listening to it for hours and hours. Baseball to me has such a you can't really listen to the NBA or the NHL for sure. You can't listen to it on the radio. But baseball, you can definitely listen to it. So that's why baseball's got a lot of different perks. But we are talking all things related here to the world of sports here with 5 of my guys from Sportswire Radio. That includes from the Pinstripe Chronicles, also Nerding Out Sports. That is Donald Stewart, who is up late or early, depending on the time. Huge shout out to Donald, as always. Also, Justin Gianelli of the Baseball Banter Show. Also from the Talking Rivals and the Liftoff Jets, Chris Pizzea, and also author, also from the Talking Rivals Show, Patrick Trotty, and of course, the head coach for our Plainview JFK Hawks boys JV team, also the legendary SJC Long Island Golden Eagle, and also now with the LI Brew Crew once again. Long Island Nets level up. That is the Brute Force Brad Weiss. And shout out to the team on what a successful season for our Plainview JFK Hawks boys JV team. I saw the Brute Force's post, and I made sure that I wanted to give a shout out. We'll definitely give another shout out later on. And I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager here of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryson. If you like what you hear from us on Sportswire Radio, please give us a like on Facebook at Sportswire Radio, and 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, you can listen to great content like Nerding Out Sports, like Pinstripe Chronicles, like the Baseball Banter, like the Talking Rivals, and the Liftoff Jets, and many, many other shows. You can do that on sportnarium.com/player. So stay tuned for that. Also, want to thank Mac and Linda McGrath, also from Northeast Streaming Sports on Roku. You can catch us tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you have Roku, all you have to do is download Northeast Streaming Sports Channel. You can find us and many other shows. We also play Larry Frank and his Frankly Out Sports Show. He plays on Wednesdays, Tuesdays, and Mondays, 9 p.m. Eastern Time on sportnarium.com/player. So we have a nice little trade. So shout out to Larry Frank. Also Keith Engel with TGI Media and a few other shows, Sal Angelotti and Talking Baseball with Sal. So we'll have a couple of different other shows that'll be on the Sportswire Radio brand in the near and distant future. And also want to make the announcement, because I've been kind of teasing it. You will also see our show tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern Time on the Tobacco Road Sports Roku channel. So you can catch us there. Also, you can get the radio version as well. So I want to thank Desmond Johnson, the proprietor from Tobacco Road and their sports channel. And Larry Frank is a part of that. You will also get some of their shows in the future on our brand live. In fact, we would have had it today, actually, but we had a little issue in terms of logistics, but we'll certainly work on that. But you can catch us now 10 a.m. Saturday. So if you miss us here tonight between 9:30 and 11:30 usually, you can catch us Saturday nights, 8 p.m. on Linda and Mac McGrath's Northeast Streaming Sports Channel. They also stream our shows on Facebook as well while we're on right now. And then 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., also, you can catch us on the Tobacco Road Sports Channel. So I want to thank, of course, everybody there for their support. We are talking all things related here to the world of professional sports, again, with Chris Bizet and Patrick Trotty of the Talking Rival Show. Chris is also with the Liftoff Jets. Also, Donald Stewart of the Pinstripe Chronicles and Nerding Out Sports. Justin Gianelli of the Baseball Banter Show. And the brute force Brad Weiss, the man who wears many hats at the legendary SJC Long Island Golden Eagle, and also the head coach for our Plainview JFK Hawks boys JV team. Had a very, very successful season. The program did as a whole. And speaking of the brute force, I'm very, very excited to talk about it. Although some people who are watching, listening to this, I don't know if they are. I've been kind of teasing it while we have a little bit of time here. I want to get into it. That is obviously the NBA. And boy, I mean, Brad, I've known you for a while. We've talked about the Knicks here quite a bit in the past, but this might be the lowest the Knicks have gone, and that is saying something because statistically the Knicks aren't as bad as they've been in prior years, but the way they've played the last couple of games, especially against Portland and the Brooklyn Nets, the short-handed Brooklyn Nets, putting it kindly, and then, of course, the NBA trade deadline kind of thrown in there, and now we're seeing the Knicks VP and Tom Thibodeau kind of fighting, and obviously the fan base is certainly fighting with obviously the Knicks team and management. It's certainly a very, very bizarre time in Knicks land. I see Donald shaking his head, and Justin's in there as well. So the brute force, we kind of teased it a couple days ago, so set the tables for us on maybe, just maybe, how far the New York Knicks have fallen.
Yeah, Tom, I'm gonna do my. I know I just can't, but I'm gonna do my best.
Keep it PG, Brad. Keep it PG.
Remaining calm because this topic is just so horrifically bad right now. It is just. I am so embarrassed right now to have not only to be a New York Knicks fan. Not only because I came on this show over and over again and said New York stand up and got all excited and all that, and now this is what they give me. I mean, we all saw the Stephen A. Smith rant on social media recently, and I'm trying not to be as bad, but I think I'm going to be because Stephen A. Smith said this is a national embarrassment. Ladies and gentlemen, we are on a worldwide radio station. This is a worldwide, just disgusting disgrace, nonsense, the worst thing in sports right now worldwide. The New York Knicks are a tragic embarrassment to New York as a city, the United United States as a country, all these different things in basketball, they are a disgrace. They're everything. I can't watch this team. They are just so bad. They are so flagrantly awful, and they just make me sick. There's no reason anyone, whether you are in New York, whether you're in California, anywhere, you should never watch this team the rest of the season. They are awful. They are disgusting. They are just making me sick to my stomach. I mean, just let's talk about all this different stuff, because the dysfunction with the organization. Tom Bryce, what have I said for years about who's the problem with the New York Knicks? Oh, yeah, the worst owner in sports, James Dolan. And once again, we think, after one season, just like 13-14 when we had Carmelo Anthony, one season we get all excited. And then all of a sudden, what happens? We screw it up again. And once again, this organization cannot be trusted. Tom Thibodeau and the organization cannot agree. And it's pretty obvious because the organization signed Evan Fournier. They got Kemba Walker. And you think Tom Thibodeau wanted that? Hell no. He's a defensive mind. And now the fact that they can't get that together and they are embarrassing themselves, and just the fact that the NBA decided to go with 10 teams that quote-unquote make the playoffs even though there's a play-in. And the New York Knicks can't even make that, for God's sake, after they were the 4th seed last year. It is just an embarrassment. I mean, I can't say enough about this. And now let me get to Julius Randle right now. Let me get to him. Because everybody right now is bloviating about, he's doing much better. He's playing much better. He's playing better in the first quarter, the second quarter, the third quarter, the beginning of the fourth quarter. But where doesn't he play well? At the end of the damn game when it counts the most. He's awful. He's the most unclutch player I've ever seen. I mean, against the Oklahoma City Thunder, we're close in the game. He throws the ball out of bounds to the 5th row of Madison Square Garden. He gets the ball at the end of the game, tie game. What does he do? Take a step back jumper that he hasn't made in damn 3 months. Instead of going to the basket strong because he's freaking 280 pounds or whatever of muscle, he won't go to the damn basket. What the hell's wrong with him? Okay, and then he don't play no defense. His leadership is god-awful. He can't use his right hand. What else can I say about the man? And he's expected to be our best player. And I've said it from day one. This guy is not the best player on a team. And he continues to prove it over and over. He does nothing in the clutch. And then just looking at Justin Gianelli's jersey makes me sick, because it has to remind me of that freaking 28-point lead that the New York Knicks had over the G League Long Island Nets, basically, were playing. The Long Island Nets were playing, and they were winning by 28 damn points. And what did they do, Tom Bryce? They lost the damn game. They lost the game to Cam Thomas, who killed them at the end of the game. I mean, the New York Knicks are just absolutely awful. And the fact that we have to see this, that New York Knicks fans and New York as a community, New York as a state, has to see this team in Madison Square Garden. I feel so bad for Billy McInerney. That stench in Madison Square Garden from the damn Knicks has to have affected the Rangers the last game because they finally lost the game. So ultimately, Tom Bryce, this is just a tragic embarrassment to the entire NBA that the New York Knicks, once again, give you 1 year of prosperity, and now we're going towards 6 years of terrible basketball for years to come. And the 1 year, Tom, you get me happy on the New York Knicks, now you got me for 6 years that's going to be pissed off every damn time I come on this show because they're headed for the freaking dump yard.
As John Gonzalez chimes in here and says, easy, Brute, your blood pressure will go up, but I agree. I despise James Dolan. Yeah, James Dolan, John, has been a lightning rod with myself and Brad for, I guess, at least 2+ years now when it comes to the show. So clearly there's some very, very good points there. Listen, the Brute Force, I mean, I was more invested actually at the Max Stern Athletic Center yesterday because Yeshiva actually played St. Joe's, Connecticut. I was much more excited about that. So listen.
Tom, I'll tell you one thing. I was more excited watching the celebrity game today than the New York Knicks. They played better. Myles Garrett, the Cleveland Browns defensive end, played better basketball on the court than the New York Knicks today.
Was
when
Kevin
I was
Hart
watching.
playing again this year? Was Kevin Hart in the game? Because he's in it like every single year.
Quavo was there again, and Jack Harlow was hitting some 4-point shots. At least those guys look like they can play a little bit. The New York Knicks, please. I've said enough. Let Donald go.
We'll let Donald go in here, and certainly, again, for whatever reason, these tragic words, I don't know why, but the No Doubt's Tragic Kingdom album comes to mind. Just random thought there. There's tragic-like thoughts there from the Brute Force, Brad Weiss. I mean, Donald, you cover this team. You write about the Knicks pretty frequently. I mean, I don't know how you follow up the Brute Force there, but try to.
My brother brute force. Okay, so it's the third 20-plus point blown game that we've had in 7 games. This is the first time in 25 years has ever happened for a basketball team. Third time in 7 games where they've blown a 20-plus point lead. That is an embarrassment. It's absolutely such an embarrassment. So where do we start with who to blame? So obviously, I would start, first of all, with Leon Rose because he just put together an ill-functioning roster. He basically built a roster of seventh and 8th men. I mean, Alec Burks, Nerlens Noel. I mean, those are just bench guys. And he basically maxed our cap out on bench guys. Evan Fournier is a 6-man. He's a 6-man in any other reasonable team. And he's starting 2-guard. It doesn't make any sense. But yeah, so they're right now with Evan Fournier. And so they maxed out our cap. We just read today that we actually could have had DeMar DeRozan. He would have gone to the Knicks if we put an offer in. But no. We wanted Evan Fournier. We wanted Alec Burks. And Thibodeau adores Alec Burks. What am I missing? So where do we start with Leon Rose? So he screwed up the offseason because he chose the option to stay sideways and tread water. And when you tread water in the NBA, you're going backwards, right? They should have pressed on with that opportunity that they had. They got the top 4 seed, but surely anybody with eyes could see that they were not really legitimately a 4th seed. They really needed to upgrade. They certainly needed a point guard. And what was the one thing that we didn't get this offseason? A point guard. Kevin Walker doesn't really count as a point guard. Mm-hmm. Then you fast forward to the trade deadline. And this is where I'm really upset. I'm actually more upset by the trade deadline than I was on the offseason because when things are going wrong, you need to have a direction. Your general manager needs to go, right, where are we right now? Right, so for instance, the Sacramento Kings, whether you agree with trading Halliburton or not, I don't agree with trading Halliburton, but they made the decision that they can make a run and they really like Sabonis. So they went and got better. They were like, you know what? We're going to make a move. We're going to make some moves. They're going to break up this team because it's broken, and we're going to make a run at one of the top power forwards in the league. Credit to them for that, right? I'm going to give credit to the Nets as well, right? They were in an impossible situation with James Harden, who's once again asked out for the second time in 12 months, right? And they had zero leverage, the Nets. And what did they do? They actually managed to create leverage, and they managed to get a very good return in their trade. And they actually went, right, okay, we're going to get rid of a superstar, but we're going to get some three really good role players back in return that is going to complement our team better, right? So that's what the Nets did. They pivoted. What did the Knicks do? In a much worse situation, they are imploding. What evidence do they need to see? They are absolutely soiling themselves on the court on a daily basis. Julius Randle's throwing the ball into the concession stands most times that I watch a ball game, and the general manager goes, "No, we're cool. I'm good." So they basically he tries to trade away some of the contracts which he signed just 4 months ago, and nobody wants them. And instead of just going, right, you know what? I think we just need to cut our losses here. And we're just going to have to accept some lower picks for some of these bad contracts, and they'll make it run at free agency. That is at least picking a direction. You're going, right, we need to scrap this. This thing's broken, right? Or if they think, you know what, we are actually not that far away from making a run at the 10th seed, well, they weren't at the time, then you know what, let's go make a trade for CJ McCollum. Or let's see if we can get a guy that can score some points and try and get us a 10th seed. At least that's picking a direction. They chose not to pick any direction. And once again, they chose to tread water. And once again, they've completely soiled themselves and capsized and absolutely imploded, worse than they even did prior to the trade deadline. And they're getting everything they deserve because this organization doesn't have a purpose right now. I don't know what the plan is. And you know what's even more disgusting? It's scandalous that you're seeing reports like Worldwide Web's trying to go in Dolan's ear to try and get Thibodeau fired. Not that I think that Thibodeau is this wonderful coach, because he's absolutely done a horrible job this year. But it's scandalous because what's Leon Rose doing? Nothing. He's hiding.
Where is he?
Be talking.
Where is he?
Talking. I just want to know what the direction is. What are we doing as an organization? Tell me what your plan is. Then I'll buy into it or not. but you're hiding. You're hiding, and you're letting Thibodeau basically get murdered, eviscerated, and hung by the Knicks fan base because they need somebody to go nuts at, and Thibodeau's the easiest guy to go after. But Leon Rose really screwed him, and he's screwing him by hiding. And now we get to Thibodeau. Sorry to be as quick as possible. We get to Thibodeau, and his biggest mistake is writing Alec Burks as point guard. Alec Burks is the worst point guard I've ever seen, and I've seen some really bad point guards.
The Knicks have had some very bad point guards.
He is not a point guard. He's a wing. He's a 3, and he's playing a point guard, and he's a disaster, right? So you got him, and then he injured RJ Barrett, which was a disgrace, and he actually probably should have fired on the spot for that. We were down 18 with like 18 seconds left, and he had RJ Barrett out there who ruined his ankle for no reason. What are you doing as a coach? And his minutes distributions are insane. I mean, with the OKC game, Reddish played 8 minutes, Toppin played 8 minutes, and Randall played about 48 minutes. I mean, what are we doing as an organization? It doesn't make any sense. So Thibodeau is just as much to blame as Leon Rose, and if he gets fired, then he probably should at the end of the year. But the scapegoat is him right now, because really this all comes down to the front office. And yes, I agree, man. Julius Randle's a disgrace. He doesn't run back. He doesn't run back at all. When he's in a bad mood, when he starts missing shots, he just gives up. And it's the most emptiest stats I've ever seen. He's putting up 31 and 16, and it's the worst 31 and 16 I've ever seen. He does not do anything. He doesn't play at a high percentage basketball. I'm totally done with this team. I'm disgraced. And I've watched the Knicks for 30 years, and this is the most angry and sick I've ever been.
Tom, let me just add one thing very quickly.
Yeah, jump in.
Before we get to Justin Gianelli, who can just laugh all he wants at this point.
But his team ain't too much better right now.
We're not playing much better.
Yeah, but at least you got to, like Donald said, you guys have a direction. We have no direction. We just have, we're going straight to the black hole at this point. That's where we're headed. But listen, I mean, just a few things to Donald's point. I mean, Tom Thibodeau has been known for destroying players in the past, where he's overplayed them. Look at Derrick Rose. I mean, the fact that he's
a big example of that with the Bulls. 100%.
He's been known for this, and he did it last year where he overplayed guys in the playoffs. They were exhausted. So Tom Thibodeau is to blame here, but I got to address that John Gonzalez comment because I'm just really ashamed of myself at this point. I fell for this, Tom Bryce. And listen, back when we were bashing the Knicks, you know just as well as anybody, Tom, I said it. The Knicks would never win with James Dolan as the owner of the team. And I said it over and over again. And then somehow, some way, I kept bashing them even when the Knicks started to win. And some Knicks fans were like, Brad, you're ridiculous. This team's good. This team's going to be so much better. And I fell for the damn trap. Why did I do such a thing? Why was I stupid enough to fall for this trap? I have no idea why. I should have just kept the same way the whole time, Tom Bryce, saying that they would never win with James Dolan because they won't. They just simply won't. And I just don't know why I gave them any hope. And at this point, Tom, I have never thought this in my life. I am one of the most loyal fans out there. The one sport that I'm considering changing fandom in is the New York Knicks. I really don't know how much longer I can watch this team and be a fan of this team, the New York Knicks.
Wait a minute. Slow down here. Not so fast, my friend, in the words of Lee Corey. Now I'm hearing that you're going to change teams. I mean, listen, who are you going to now all of a sudden become a fan? Are you going to become a Heat fan or a Bucks fan? I mean, are you going to look to front run? I mean, is that what we're now going to?
What about the Nets?
Steph Curry.
Reduced to
Watch Steph Curry. The Warriors are beautiful to watch.
Somebody else. Some other organization that has a point guard that's good, which is basically everybody else. Somebody who actually has a good point. Someone who has a decent owner. Somebody who is actually in a city, where fans can be happy.
Let me ask you this question, because John Gonzalez has got a funny comment, because this is turning now completely not about the NBA, but knowing you for a while, you became a Knicks fan when they weren't any good. I mean, all you've known is the Knicks really haven't been good.
The only thing I've seen is the Knicks be bad. I mean, I haven't seen, any prosperity with the Knicks. All I've seen is them just continue to be a disaster for 20 years. So I listen, at this point, oh God, John Gonzalez. At this point, I'd rather be a Detroit Lions fan in football than be a Knicks fan in basketball at this point. I mean, it's so embarrassing. And the fact that, Detroit is Detroit. This is New York City in Madison Square Garden. And you somehow, some way cannot find a way to get it right. The Nets a few years ago were in New Jersey, for God's sake. And they came to Brooklyn and took over New York already. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is New York. You're in the middle of Manhattan. You're playing in the world's most famous arena. And you are a national embarrassment every damn year? I mean, come on. It's bad for the NBA. Like we told you, MLB is such a bad spot. The NBA is in a great spot. The only thing the NBA always has to worry about is how the Knicks are, because when the Knicks are good, it helps the NBA. When the Knicks are not, it screws the NBA.
The only way the Knicks can get better is if they land a star, but how are they going to land a star?
I don't know.
How are they going to do it?
What do they have?
Exactly. So, for instance, if they're going to make a trade for like Donovan Mitchell, who's a New York guy, he loves New York, he's a Mets fan, he's always commenting on New York, and I think he would love to come here at some point. How are you going to put together a trade package for him? We've got nothing. The only guy that probably is worth anything is R.J. Barrett, and we're not going to trade him. So, how are we going to pull that trade package off? So, and even if we did, it would take about 5 or 6 players plus all our draft picks, and then we'll have no players to play beside him. So we're in a real hole here, man.
Headed for the black hole. I said it. It's time to go back to the black hole, back to hiding, back to being embarrassing. Because
Well, Gonzalez, Brad, actually says here, I mean, would you consider trying roller derby maybe? That's what he says. I think the Brew Force should try roller derby.
And then back
my
to the
sport is basketball. I'm a basketball coach. I'm a former basketball player. I mean, this is my sport.
What about Damian Lillard, man? Like, Damian Lillard was interested in the Knicks when the Knicks were winning last year. He was interested, but he's not going to be interested now because we're imploded again. And once again, the stars who are looking at Madison Square Garden going, this is a place that I would consider playing in now because they look like they're on the uptrend. Now are imploding on national television, blowing 30-point leads to G League teams. The same stars are going to go.
And the game in Portland also, they had a lead
Knicks.
in that game also, and they scored, 11 points in the fourth quarter or 13 points in the fourth
And you know
quarter?
what's scary? Fernie Simons is better than anything the Knicks have right now.
Yeah. And listen, the last thing I'll say, because this topic is so depressing. I mean, let's
I do want
just get to a better topic. But listen, we talk about R.J. Barrett, and I like R.J. Barrett. I think he's going to be a serviceable, solid player. But the Knicks passed on Darius Garland for R.J. Barrett. And right now, Darius Garland looks like a great point guard that the Knicks desperately need. So at this point, yeah, I like R.J. Barrett. Yeah, he's a serviceable player. But he's just like Randall. He can only use his left hand. He can't use his right hand. So he's limited. His shooting is getting better, but not great. I actually would rather have Darius Garland as a good point guard right now, who's representing the Cleveland Cavaliers in the All-Star game this weekend. So, the Knicks don't have any All-Stars, and Tom Bryce, we might not be talking until 2026 for the next time the Knicks will have an All-Star.
But listen, at the end of the day, we still have our SJC Golden Eagles. We still have some basketball to watch for the next couple of weeks. John Jay's in the postseason, so maybe for our Knicks it's not working out so well. But Justin, I mean, I know a lot to follow up there. I know a lot to basically dissect. I mean, I know the Nets, like we kind of just talked about what you brought up very briefly. It's not much better. I mean, they are in a postseason position. We do expect guys to get back eventually. But, I mean, what do you make of all this before we move on here?
Well, first, a quick final, bow tie on the Knicks here. It is a little concerning that not once have we heard from Leon Rose to get a sense of what is going on with the New York Knicks. Usually every general manager addresses the media on trade deadline day. I mean, Sean Marks, obviously, we did have the big trading Harden to the Philadelphia 76ers and getting Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, and Andre Drummond back. But Sean Marks met the media, and Sean Marks has met the media on multiple occasions. He's been more than available to kind of give you a state of the Nets. And yes, we are 2-12 in our last 14 games, which is not good right now. And we've dropped from, being a top tier team in the Eastern Conference to a team that's right now in the play-in game. Right now we're in the 7th seed. Granted, we had James Harden quit on the team. Kevin Durant's been out for the last month with a knee injury. Should be getting him back within the first week or two after the All-Star break. Ben Simmons is working is ramping himself back up to NBA game shape. And I don't know. I don't know what the situations end up going to be with Kyrie Irving. Is he going to be able to play at the Barclays Center or not? I don't know. If he's not, you only have him for 10 more games because the Nets have, I believe, 10 road games left. But the Nets are starting to get pieces back, and you're seeing already the value of Seth Curry. I mean, on Wednesday night against the Knicks, he was I think 6 of 8 from 3. And Andre Drummond is a rebounding machine.
I like the Andre Drummond piece because I really feel like
the Nets all season long have been the single worst rebounding team.
And who's been the best rebounder in the NBA the past decade? It's pretty much been Andre Drummond. I mean,
Andre Drummond is a walking double-double, basically. And now you couple that with LaMarcus Aldridge, who is deadly in the mid-range. The Nets all of a sudden have two bigs who can guard other teams' centers.
Mm-hmm.
The teams in the NBA that still have legit centers, they can guard. And not only that, we've seen in the past Ben Simmons be able to guard a guy like Giannis. And, defensively, the Nets are going to improve as a team. What I want to see is Durant and Simmons come back within the first week of the All-Star break. Because I want to see them get the chemistry together. Because this team is, listen, they're still one of the teams to beat in the Eastern Conference if you put them all together. The problem is the biggest word you can mention in all this is if. And there's still a lot of ifs with this Nets team. And yes, I'd like to know why Cam Thomas isn't in this Rising Stars game tonight. Honestly, maybe because he hasn't played enough games to qualify. But I mean, what he did the other night. I mean, what he did the other night is why stars don't want to go to Madison Square Garden, because they want to have their moment at Madison Square Garden, but they don't want to play there full time. They want to come in there, have their one shining moment, and then leave.
That's a generational thing. That's a generational thing. Yeah.
Justin, to pick up on, I like the trade a lot for the Nets because what they did was they covered a lot of their holes. Like they were really needing a rim protector, and they needed somebody that could collect some boards. And now Andre Drummond is now a beast on either side of the boards. So that was a really good.
And defense is going to show too when Ben Simmons gets on.
100%, yeah. So Ben Simmons. Yeah, he could play like a point forward role. You could play him in the forward role, or you could play him off as an off guard, just to play defense, and just to make use of his skill set, which is defense and ball handling. He'll get his rebounds too. That I think that will work so much better for them than James Harden, who I think James Harden has got too much of an ego. He's all about himself to agree to play a tertiary role behind Kyrie.
And look. Durant. And look, we've heard the reports where the Nets were playing San Antonio, and the day after the game, he instead of flying with the team, he flies to Houston to go party.
Yeah,
or the Nets flying to Denver to play the Nuggets, he flies to Vegas to go party. James Harden is not an all-in player.
No, he's not.
And that's why Kevin Durant got ticked off, and that's why he eventually had the conversation with Sean Marks. He's like, oh, we got to get this guy out of here.
He spends his entire time in the strip club.
Not somebody who keeps himself. Not somebody who keeps himself in tip-top shape either. No. And you could see his conditioning. He gets lazy on the court. It's just you get to a point where you just have had enough, and at some point you just realize that you're the problem, not the Nets, not the Rockets. Sometimes you got to realize you're the problem.
He's
And
going to age drastically, bro. He's going to age drastically because of the lack of conditioning.
He,
In his
he
20s,
def-
he
he
can-
definitely
he's fine.
is here. He definitely is here, and I got to move on here, unfortunately, because we are with time constraints here, and I do want to read a few comments in here before I do move on here. And Jason Getz, obviously, the brute force knows very well. He says Brad knows he's the biggest Nets fan. Shout out to Jason for listening. Also, he says Bradley in big bold, so brute force like. So I want to give a shout out to Jason Getz and, of course, everybody else tuned in here. So we've got some of the NBA stuff here out of the way, and obviously some talk on the All-Star game. Maybe we'll touch upon that after we're off with the stream. But I want to ask a fun question for everybody. I want to bring the Talking Rivals guys in here first, now that we're going to kind of lighten the mood a little bit, because we heard the brute force, we heard Donald, we even heard Dustin to an extent. But now that the NFL season is over on Sundays, and I was thinking about this before I was on the air here, and I kind of wanted to ask everybody this, because obviously the NFL was such a big part of everybody's lives through Sundays and such. I almost have to ask everybody here to lighten the mood. What is everybody going to do now for their Sundays now that there's no NFL? So, I mean, I'm just curious.
You know what? In the morning, I'll probably be checking out the Premier League soccer, like I usually do.
Okay.
Afternoon, if there's no baseball on, if there's no hockey on.
Well, the Islanders will be on, but the Islanders are pretty much in Knicks territory where it ain't really going anywhere.
I used to like NASCAR, but the last few years I've been kind of stepping away from it, so I haven't really watched much. But maybe I'll watch it. Like this weekend, I'll probably watch the Daytona 500. That's always a great race, so I'll watch it. But I just want to get back to something that Brute Force said, that he's going to pick.
Please do.
He's not going to be a Knicks fan anymore.
Please do. Jump in, please.
No, because if I'm not worried, aren't you a Met fan?
Yes.
Okay. So if you could be a Met fan and you're a Jet fan as well, right? Unfortunately, with me?
Yes.
Okay. If you can get through those teams, you're complaining about the Knicks, you're ready to jump ship. It's the same thing. You can handle it. You got it. Come on.
I mean, listen.
Wow. Brad, you're
First of all,
on here. Jump in, Brad.
Come on.
I think Chris does make a great point. But listen, at least the Mets were in the world. At least I've seen the Mets in the World Series. At least I've seen the Jets in an AFC Championship. All I've seen from the New York Knicks is a few first rounds and a lot of embarrassing records. So at this point, listen, and you know what? It's not even like about the Knicks at this point. It's about James Dolan. I mean, I've said it from year after year. I mean, this guy's the owner of the team. It's hard to root for this team. I mean, he kicks out his own former players. You know, he shows up only when the team has success. Have you seen James Dolan at Madison Square Garden, Donald? Because I haven't lately. Because he doesn't want to show up when the team's not doing well. So in the end, listen, Chris, I think to your point, I'll probably stick through because I'm pretty loyal to my.
Golden Eagles. No offense, Brad, but the Golden Eagles haven't been good until recently.
I don't understand about Dolan is that he leaves the Rangers alone. Like he hires guys and he runs boom. With the Knicks, he's always involved.
Yeah, that's a good point. The Rangers.
But to be fair to him, he's not really done anything wrong these last 2 years. He's basically done what the Knicks fans have asked him to do. He's taken a step back and he's given it all to the World Wide Wes and Leon Rose and all that stuff and Thibodeau, and it's up to them to put together a product. He's just signing the checks right now. This is a bigger problem than Dolan, unfortunately.
He needs a GM to come in and basically hit the reboot button, start from scratch, and just start over. Which
is what Rose should have done.
Yeah.
Which is sad, Chris, because ever since I was born in 1997, that has basically been what has been said every year. Press the reboot button to restart.
You became a Knicks fan in what? I'm assuming like 2006, Brad? Like 2007, you were a Knicks fan, like around.
Yeah, like Stephon Marbury years. That's when
bad then. Yeah,
on the pair of his shoes. That's when I started.
I missed Stephon Marbury.
Well, that's one thing Brad and I actually have in common is we both became fans of our teams while Stephon Marbury was on it.
Yeah, me too.
because I became a fan of the New Jersey Nets in 2001. Right before it was the season before the kid trade, when we swapped him and Marbury. but Marbury was still our point guard.
Right.
Did you? I almost have to
love Stephon Marbury. He was a
I-
baller, man.
I almost have to
It was
ask
such a
Justin. I
soft
mean,
boy.
I almost have to ask Justin before I get to some of the other guys' football comments, and then when it came to John Gonzalez's funny comment. I mean, did you own a pair of Starberry shoes, Justin?
No.
Okay, all right, fair
There
enough.
was there was not a play. There was not a player I despised more than Stephon Marbury.
I figured that. No, I figured that. But
He was good for the Nets, though.
Selfish trash.
no, he again.
He was good for Stephon Marbury.
Yeah, exactly. But he's the kind of guy that will score 50 and be happy if they lose, and
Exactly.
be miserable if he scores 10 and they win. That was him.
But that was his career. Listen, and that was his entire career. Again, stats wise, which like Julius Randle, right? 31 points, 16 rebounds, but
Empties.
Marbury
Empty stats.
was like right, exactly. And John Gonzalez says no NFL. I guess I'll go watch paint dry. Well, I mean, hope it's not that drastic. I mean, I'm curious though for some of the guys on Sundays. I mean, for you, Patrick. I mean, now that there's no NFL on Sundays and we do loom over the prospect of no baseball, what will you do on Sundays?
I'm watching D1 baseball. It just came out today.
Season starts this weekend.
I
Yeah.
mean, you had the reigning World Series champs. They lost. You had the number 2 team in the country already lost their first game. So there's parity, and it's just good baseball down south. The SEC has like
Yeah, you know
9
what? I mean,
teams, World Cup
I've
25.
covered some of that. I've covered some D1 baseball in the past, so we might actually have to work in a 5 or 10 minute segment next week on some D1 baseball. If there's anything, any team you're watching in terms of the standings this year that you think might potentially come as a surprise.
Well, it's a safe bet to always put your money on Vanderbilt. If you want to watch
Always,
good
yeah.
college pitching, Vanderbilt's got it. Mississippi State was the reigning champs, but
Yep.
like I said, they lost today. Just pick an SEC team and go for it.
I think, yeah.
Basically,
It's always Vanderbilt, Mississippi State. It's always LSU.
Yep.
It's always Tennessee.
Florida.
Those teams, Florida. So yeah, good point. So maybe we'll work that in at some point. So yeah, I mean, baseball season is starting this weekend. So at the collegiate level, and we actually are going to be covering some of it in some form or another. I do have a connection with Wagner College, so maybe we'll work in some D1 baseball. So we'll see about that. They have a new coach here, and that could be something. I mean, for you, Justin, I kind of have a feeling you'll probably at least be periodically watching net games on Sundays because we do sometimes get those Nets home games. But with the NFL season pretty much in the rearview mirror, and USFL for a while, I mean, what are you going to do for these Sundays?
I think YouTube's gonna be my best friend. And a quick question for Patrick, because he might know this better than I do. Because he never signed, is Kumar Rocker going to pitch for Vanderbilt again this year?
No, the rumor is he's going to pitch for Independent League.
Okay, and then
Yeah.
go back into the draft this year.
And then go back into the draft.
Okay,
Maybe he'll sign
If
with
he's
I
healthy,
wasn't sure if he was going to go back to Vanderbilt after
He's
not
healthy.
signing
He's
with
a
the
top
Nets.
5 pick.
Yeah, I would.
Even if he's
figure.
not.
You would think he would be.
Yeah.
But anyways, for me, I think YouTube's gonna be my best friend. I'm gonna go find an old NFL game and watch it.
All
Just
right. I mean,
pick a random date, random year, and just watch one game. And then if the Nets are on, I'll watch.
sometimes you get those like 6 o'clock Sunday Nets games at the Barclays Center, or those.
And we're gonna
like
probably get some
3:30.
probably more 1 and 3:30 games because they're not going up against the NFL, so you're gonna get some more Sunday afternoon games. Tomorrow, this weekend, I'll be locked into the All-Star stuff. With the Rising Stars on now, and then you get the whole festivities tomorrow night, and then the game on Sunday. But yeah, until baseball comes back,
I'm surprised
whenever that
nobody's
is,
mentioned so
I'll
far.
watch some old games. I might get into the USFL. I don't know how much I could. I might end up watching it. We'll see.
I'm considering how baseball may or may not be around. That's going to all depend on that. I mean, I'll be curious from Donald and Brad here because I'm almost waiting for somebody to say, well, I'm going to watch college basketball. I mean, the NCAA tournament's coming. But, I mean, for you, Donald,
I'll be locked into March Madness.
That is something that we'll definitely talk about here because you always cannot not talk about the March Madness and the NCAA tournament because that is coming up. I mean, for you, Donald, now that there is going to be no NFL here, I mean, what's your Sundays going to be like?
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
You're telling me Bobby Tats is not going to say, "Hey, let's do a Pinstripe Chronicles show. Let's do it like
I'm
1991,
gonna
like
miss
Yankees
my-
memories."
I loved my Sundays, man. I would listen to podcasts, and then I would get my fantasy team together, and then I'd just have like a whole 12 hours of football. That was my Sundays. It was the best. And then Mondays, and then Thursdays. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scout for the upcoming NFL draft, and that's what I'm going to do because I'm obsessed with football, and just pray that we for September to come really quick. So no, I'm gonna scout for the NFL draft, and what else am I gonna do? Well, thank God I write for a basketball site, so I'll just be watching the playoffs and stuff. The Knicks, I'm just not going to watch. I will, but I'll wait for the playoffs. That'll be good. And baseball, hey, we'll eventually we'll have some baseball to get me through these cold, hard NFL nights, NFL list nights.
Well, Mike Francesa would always say, and John Gonzalez chimes in here and says, "March Madness, I will watch." Yeah, I think that's most people will. But Mike Francesa used to always say that the hardest month of the year in sports was February, because after football season, you had like this lull in the calendar. And now that we may be looming with the possibility of no baseball, you think about April, May, and June could be very, very difficult months because, again, we talked about basketball, and basketball here in New York at the NBA doesn't look too promising. Maybe the Nets will still make the playoffs, but the NHL, I mean, the Rangers are going to be in it. That might be one thing, but as a whole, it looks kind of bleak. Brad, I have a feeling, though, that you'll be like me and you'll be busy regardless, and you won't even know if the NFL season will still be alive, because you and I are pretty much, we're always kind of like go-getters. I hate to put it that way. We'll always have something going on. You'll have coaching and I'll have something with this or anything else. But I mean, what will Sundays be like for you? Although I have a feeling I know the answer, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, you said it, obviously. I still have to coach on Sundays for a little while. But then after that, obviously, we spoke about it earlier, Tom. I got to get suited for the Brew Crew. I got to get back on the field. So that'll definitely start soon as well.
Are we playing in 2 leagues this year, or are we playing just in 1 league? Remember?
No, I think we're playing on Sunday mornings. So we're going to be busy on Sunday mornings.
What position is the brute force in baseball?
So, well, I should say in softball, because it's softball.
Okay.
I do play a little first, a little bit of the catcher. With catcher's easy. You just got to stand there and get the ball. But some first base, some DH, some outfield. So I'll mix it up.
DH? You really are a DH? I mean, you're Mr. Run the Field and go out there and do the drill.
Yeah, listen, I'm out there to DH, hit some home runs, get some balls far, make some guys chase them. So, that's what they put me in there for sometimes. But ultimately, we're going to have a lot of fun with the Brew Crew. March Madness is definitely on my mind. You remember last year, Tom, I posted on the blog, my whole bracket for men's and women's. So I'm looking forward to watching both. Because the women's one is actually going to be interesting this year, because UConn is still waiting for their best player to come back.
Yeah,
women's basketball has become more competitive. And then men's basketball, it's not like there's a definite powerhouse. There's no like Duke normally, where they're normally
we have a Duke storyline, though. This is it for Mike Krzyzewski, Coach K.
Yep.
This is it. I mean,
that too. So there's going to be a lot that goes with March Madness, and starting now that I refuse to watch the New York Knicks. In fact, I'll go as far as say is that if my dad puts the Knicks on the television, I'm going to walk out of the room. I'm not going to watch. I refuse to watch. So I will watch some NCAA Division I games. Obviously, that I'm going to watch Division III games with my SJC Golden Eagles, as well as Tom Bryce. I got to mention it. My good friend Brendan Fitzpatrick and his Cortland Red Dragons are making a very late season push to potentially make the playoffs. They were having a rough season, but they've won a lot of games lately. So
they got off to a very slow start. Very slow start there in the SUNYAC. Very, very tough.
They got Coach talking to Coach Fitz. They're really young, so they got off to a slow start, but they're getting hot at the right time, and they might make a playoff run. So mostly college stuff, like Patrick said. Division I baseball, Division I basketball. But I'll tell you one thing that I know: I will not be watching the New York Knicks. I've officially declared that this show, I'm not watching them. I'm not wasting my time. I'm a coach that needs to see good basketball, and that's a disgraceful, disgusting disaster that I can't watch as a coach. So ultimately, I'll find anything else to do with watch the Knicks.
Well, we'll certainly find out, but I do think that definitely with March Madness coming here, and I have a feeling that most
We're
of
gonna have
us
good local flavor too. We're gonna have look at the way Rutgers has been playing lately. We're gonna have some good.
And I gotta
flavor
throw
with
one
Rutgers
team
coming
very,
out.
very
Iona?
local. I gotta throw one team in there very, very
One
local
favorite
that I
team.
think has a very good shot to be in the tournament, and they're usually not in the tournament too often. That's down the block from me, my Wagner Seahawks. I mean, the Wagner College and the NEC. I mean, they were recently. Go ahead, Brad, jump in.
I was going to say I watched them play last night. They played Sacred Heart yesterday. The Sacred Heart has Mike Sixsmith, the brother of Billy Sixsmith, on that team. So I was watching. Watching Mike Sixsmith play against Wagner. Wagner looks poised to do big things, like you said.
Wagner's very good this year. Wagner's like the Mets. It's like every 9 years Wagner is good. Now they're actually good. So I think that might be one reason to watch the tournament. I mean, obviously.
I'll put up one more team quickly because I actually went to watch them earlier, and they're actually doing really well right now. Led by Speedy Claxton, right down the street. The Hofstra. Yep. They've had a very good season as well. I'm actually curious to see what they can do. So basketball is going to be interesting, and maybe I'll pop out to a Long Island Nets G League game. Because like I said,
now see, Brad, now we got you back more happy and more positive because now we got some guys here who know college basketball, and I think maybe starting next week we work in a little college basketball because college basketball.
UCLA should be one of my favorites. Looking at that comment.
We get you UCLA, very, very good point. John Gonzalez chimes in there. Listen, in Hofstra, Brad, I got to also throw in a reference because a good friend of mine is also with the program. That is Andrew Cobian, of course, Mr. Coach Cobian with the podcast of his. And, of course, he was a teammate and a classmate of Jason Facina, of course, when he went to high school. So we got to always mention Coach Cobian because he's been a big supporter of ours. So I have to mention them. And at least you didn't mention St. John's and Seton Hall this year because St. John's and Seton Hall, it ain't going anywhere. Not this year.
I'm confused at what's going on with Seton Hall because Kevin Willard always has that team up the top of the Big East, but for some reason they've been very up and down.
They scream NIT this year. They scream NIT.
Brute Force will like this. I actually played in high school against Hofstra's assistant coach in basketball, Mike DePauli.
Oh, okay. Okay, I know him very well.
He's a Westchester guy, so.
Give me a scouting report then before we get
shooter. Good shooter. Yeah. Off the dribble, good. Just all around good game, but a really good offensive player.
Did you know him when you guys were playing, or you just played against him as a competitor?
Oh no, we played in the Mike DePauli tournament named that. So it kind of was a segue, you know.
Wow. Okay.
I'll see. Yeah, I'll see if I can see him and say hi because I'm looking to go to a game soon. My dad is an alumni of Elon, and they're playing each other soon. Elon against Hofstra, so I'm looking forward to
doing well this year. Yeah.
Hofstra's always had a good basketball program. You go back. I'm even thinking like back 20 plus years ago. Hofstra's had a good basketball program. Football, not as much, but the basketball programs. I mean. Obviously, Speedy Claxton again. He's obviously at the top.
Well, he's stopped playing football for how many years now, right?
A while. It's been a while.
It's been a while.
I remember watching the old NEC games on SNY, the NEC football games, and
always have Wayne Corbett though.
Well, yeah.
Well, they always have Giovanni Carmazzi too.
That's true. Also,
and what do you call and the receiver? The other receiver too that played for the Saints.
Oh,
Colston.
Yeah, didn't he go?
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
I
think you're right. All right, so we're feeling a little better about Hofstra football, but Hofstra basketball, again. All right, so next week, listen, Brad, we won't mention the NBA to get you too worked up, but you
can mention the NBA, just please, not the Knicks, please.
All right, listen, we'll figure something out, but college basketball is definitely on the agenda because now I always say that it's hard at the D1 level because Brad will know because we cover the D3 level. It's so hard to watch all the D1 games early on because, for example, before we get out of here and get closing thoughts and we'll finish with the rest of the stream on the radio, but I'll have to sit there and watch 5 hours worth of games on the computer to watch then and go on ESPN2 and ESPN3. do another 3 hours. I can't do it. That's why the NBA game, I don't watch the NBA as much as I used to in the past few years because I'm watching SJC, I'm watching Five Towns, I'm watching John Jay because I'm watching 5-6 hours of basketball. How am I going to sit there and watch another 2 or 3 hours? But that's certainly another topic for the time. Obviously, a lot to get into here. So let's get closing thoughts. I got about 10 or so minutes here before we get out of here. So let me get closing thoughts from everybody. Let me get Chris first here for now. Closing thoughts from the stream. Maybe we'll spend a few minutes on the radio dial on anything else, and then we'll get out of here. But Chris, give me some closing thoughts. Anything you want to plug Liftoff Jets related, also talking rivals, social media. Also, happy birthday to your brother. I hope he has a very, very happy birthday and many, many more ahead. So I can't thank you enough, and the floor is yours, Chris, and fire away.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, guys, for great discussion tonight. Yeah, I'm just crossing my fingers and hoping, this week is going to be good news from the baseball front. Hopefully they could figure whatever they figure out with the CBA and we get baseball. And talking rivals, we're going to just keep talking about what's going on with baseball or what's not going on with baseball. We're going to try to come up with stuff too, and looking forward to it. And Liftoff Jets, we're going to start talking about the draft now, off-season Jet stuff. So every week we're going to be given a different position, ranking the players that are in the draft from each position. So I'm definitely looking forward to diving into the draft a little bit more. And I think Patrick's going to be joining us as well in a couple of weeks to help us out as well. So it'd be great, Looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to that. And, of course, everybody can follow you on Twitter for Liftoff Jets at Talking Rivals, also CP7NY as well on social media. So a lot of good work in the pike, and I'm obviously looking forward to listening and hearing all that and promoting it. So thank you as always, my friend. And Patrick, I want to give you the floor. Anything you want to promote, book-related, Talking Rivals, closing thoughts here, social media, and fire away, my friend.
Yeah, thank you. It's great as always to be here on a Friday night talking some sports. Sorry, I'm a little quiet on basketball. It's just been ages since I've watched basketball, so we were talking about.
Well, don't worry. We've established that college basketball we're going to focus on a little.
Yeah,
more.
That should be fun. Do some brackets and whatnot.
Yeah, that'll be cool. I'm looking forward to that. That'll be fun.
You can find me at Patrick Trotty, also at Talking Rivals. There you go. Someone's reading my book. It's a good prop.
Hey, cheap pop. I mean, that's what they always say in wrestling.
No,
pop, so.
I learned that from wrestling.
Well.
I'm glad to hear that. Listen, I'm glad to hear somebody mention wrestling there because that's obviously Sundays for me is WrestleMania season we're in. So that's why.
That's right. Yeah.
And as far as Talking Rivals, we'll be asking some questions, and we don't know the answers to them yet. So it's always tricky when you do that on a podcast. We're getting to the part of the off-season.
Trivia for him, too.
Let me give you guys one quick suggestion because I know I'm running up on time, and I want to get brief closing thoughts from other guys in here. And I saw this. One of my friends is Greg Pryor, who played for the Kansas City Royals many, many moons ago. And I'm thinking for the video component, if you guys have your baseball card collections, maybe you throw out a baseball card show theme and throw out compare players and cards. I mean, because people always like to look at, he showed that card, he had that player. Then you kind of just randomly
the old
talk about
Billy Ripken card.
Yes.
Yeah.
How about that was the Fleer 89 era, right? That was Fleer 89?
I know it was late 80s, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, throw those out there. I mean, maybe that's just a suggestion. I mean, I'm just throwing something
we'll
out
be doing
there.
Trade talk, prospects.
Because people always like the baseball card collection. Because Greg Pryor did a Facebook Live once, and it was like he was telling me on the phone, I got 1,700 views on there, and they did this, and they asked me players. So sometimes maybe people want you talk about that and go, well, I pulled out a Carl Yastrzemski 82 Fleer, and then he pulls out, let's say, an 86 Topps Dwight Evans or whatever it is, because Patrick's a Red Sox fan, whatever it might be. So that might be something to throw out there. Just throwing out thoughts.
Interesting. So that'll give us something to talk about.
Never know. Right. Hopefully we don't get to that point. But
if you need a third wheel, I mean, I've got a pretty massive baseball card collection, so I'm happy to pop it out there. So if it helps viewers, I'm willing to do it. But obviously, good stuff, guys, and we'll look forward to whatever you have on Monday. Justin, I want to give you the floor. I want to give you some closing thoughts. Anything else you want to share and plug and fire away? And I can't thank you enough.
Yeah, great to be back here again. You can follow me on Twitter at JGNelly12. The baseball banter page is at bballbantersm. I'm just like Chris. I'm Patrick, I'm trying to be optimistic, but I guess I'm a little bit more pessimistic about the whole lockout than they are. But just get it done. It's all. I'll keep it short and simple. Get it done.
I think that's pretty much, what most people feel at this point to baseball fans. So, good work, Justin. Thank you as always. Thank you for all you do. We'll look forward to at some point, maybe a baseball banter show, but stay tuned. And Donald, always good to hear from you. Anything you want to plug? I know we have a Pinstripe Chronicles show that Bobby Tat gave. We'll be playing that over the weekend. We've also been playing your shows with Rob. Obviously enjoyed them. I think I listened to him a couple different times on a walk early in the morning. So enjoyed
Nice.
that. I enjoy it. The shows are very good. Shout out to Rob as well. And I want to give you the floor. Any closing thoughts and fire away, my friend.
Tom, thank you so much again, man. It's always a pleasure. Patrick, good luck in the book, man. Congratulations in the book. Chris, always good fun to talk to you. Justin, and Brute Force, hopefully we can talk next together sometime. It'll be good. Listen, I've nerding out sports. We're going to do a podcast tomorrow. We're going to be talking about who are potential cap casualties for the Giants, and then we'll be looking at free agency and the draft in the upcoming week. So kind of keep an eye on that. So shout out to my man Rob, Tats, and myself and Rob. We'll be for the Pinstripe Chronicles. We'll be going into. We're trying to get a little bit more fun because we've been fighting about this CBA and it's dragging us down. We're all getting sad. So we'll be trying to make it a little bit more lively, and we'll be talking about potential roster moves and stuff for the Yankees in the upcoming weeks. So, so you can find me at dstewart267. You can also check out at Last Word Hoops, lastword.com, lastwordsports.com. We do NBA and stuff. So please check all that stuff out. But once again, thank you so much, guys. I'll hopefully speak to you guys soon.
Absolutely, Donald. Always shout outs to Bobby Tats also and Rob, of course. We've had them here on the stream, so we look forward to having them back on at some point in the future. And Brian, I'm going to give you the floor. Very brief thoughts, and we'll certainly expound upon SJC on the radio only when we get out of here. But anything you want to say very quickly before the stream runs out? Because we got about 2 or 3 minutes at most. So I want to give you the floor and fire away social media plug, and we'll get a little more into SJC in depth when we sign off on the video stream.
Absolutely, yeah. So you can find me on Instagram at bweiss20, on Twitter at bradweiss20, and searching Bradley Weiss on Facebook. I'd appreciate everybody liking my most recent post, which was tonight. And I'll talk more about that on the radio. So be sure to check that out. Thank you guys for a great show so far, as we'll continue on sportnarium.com/player. Definitely a lot of fun as always, Tom, on Friday night. And I can't wait to continue on sportnarium.com/player. And thank you to everybody who's listening on Roku.
Absolutely. And of course, we'll definitely talk maybe 25 or 30 or so more minutes when it comes to maybe a few other thoughts, riff upon, and get out of here. But obviously, I want to thank everybody that's watching this. So if you are watching like a John Gonzalez, if you do want to listen to us on the radio only, we'll be on sportnarium.com/player for the remainder. I'd say about 25 or 30 or so minutes. And you want to comment, you can definitely DM me on Facebook, and I'll read off the comment. I know it's not the same as the video, but you can do that as well. Also want to thank again Linda and Mac McGrath at Northeast Streaming Sports. You can follow and like them on Facebook. We'll be on there 8 o'clock tomorrow. I also want to thank Desmond Johnson with Tobacco Sports, because this will be on tomorrow at 10 a.m. I also want to thank John Gonzalez for the Sports Authorities Group. I think, John, we have, 32 or 3,300 people following on Facebook. Chris, I think, was made a moderator there, so I want to make sure that we recognize them as well. Also want to thank, of course, Plainview JFK and the athletics program. Everybody can follow them on Instagram at POB Athletics. John Jay College, please follow the athletics programs on Twitter and Instagram at John Jay Athletics or JJ Athletics. Also, you can follow the men's basketball team at JJCM Basketball, Twitter and Instagram. We had the pleasure to speak with Ryan Highland, the coach of the men's basketball team. They'll be in the postseason Sunday at 3 o'clock. Linda Day, who's already declared she's coming back on Monday night. In fact, Coach was enjoying herself so much, she made sure to remind me that we're going to speak after Sunday's game. So you can follow her, of course, at JJCW Basketball with the basketball team there. Of course, the Bloodhounds had one of their best regular seasons in the school's history. And, of course, our SJC Long Island Golden Eagles, you can follow and, of course, support them on Twitter and Instagram. Twitter, SJC_MBB. Instagram, SJCMBB. And also, of course, if you like what you hear from us at Sportswire Radio, you can like and follow us anytime on Facebook at Sportswire Radio. Also, sportnarium.com/player to listen to all of our great shows where we will be. Also, nessp.info for the Northeast Streaming Sports website. So thank you, everybody, for watching this. I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager here of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce. We will be back here Friday next week, 9:30 p.m. We'll also have some more shows in the near and distant future. We were with Chris Pizzea and Patrick Trotty of the Talking Rival Show. Chris also with the Liftoff Jets. Justin Gianelli of the Baseball Banter Show. Donald Stewart of Nerding Out Sports and Pinstripe Chronicles. And the Brute Force Brad Weiss, the legendary SJC Long Island Golden Eagle, of course, the head coach for our JView Plainview JFK Hawks boys team. Also with the Long Island Nets Level Up and the SJC Long Island Golden Eagles. I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager here of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce. And if you are on Sportswire Radio, sportair.com/player, hang on tight. We'll be up and running here shortly. So thank you, everybody, for watching. Good night. Have a great weekend. Stay safe. Stay well. Okay, so